So today, we're going to break down how one of the most shocking assassinations in recent memory wasn't really about a single spy on the ground. No, it was about something much more public and way more widespread. Okay, so picture this. A heavily guarded leader, one of the most protected people on the planet, killed in a precision strike. That's the headline, right? That's what everyone knows. But here's the thing. This isn't really a story about the strike itself. The real story, the one that kind of changes everything we think about modern conflict, is all about the how. How was an operation like this even possible? So where do you even start with something like this? Well, it doesn't begin in some secret spy bunker. It starts out in the open, with something you and I see every single day. See, the key to this whole thing wasn't planting a couple of secret microphones. No, it was way bigger. It was about hacking into Tehran's entire public traffic camera system. We're talking years of just invisible surveillance on a citywide scale. And this is where it gets really ironic. The very same cameras that Iran had set up to watch its own citizens, to keep an eye on protesters, those became the exact weapon that its enemies used to watch the regime's most senior people. The state's own tool of control was completely turned back on itself. Okay, so you've got all this raw footage, tons of it. How do you turn that noise into something useful? Well, that's where this idea of the digital ghost comes into play. This right here, this was the big breakthrough. Out of maybe thousands of cameras, just one single camera had just the right angle to see something that seemed pretty minor, but was absolutely critical. The parking lot for the leader's security team. That was the tiny digital breadcrumb they needed to follow. There's this saying in intelligence. You don't kill a leader by watching the leader. They're too protected. Their movements are too random. No, you kill a leader by watching the people around him. Their security guards, their drivers, they have routines. You watch the network to get to the center. So let's just break this down into simple steps. First, you've got the hack into the network. Then, they had to find that one crucial camera angle. And from there, it was this super painstaking process of just analyzing patterns. Like, who's arriving when? Who's leaving with whom? When do the shifts change? All of it, just to build this complete picture. And all of that work, all that analysis, led to what the intelligence community calls pattern of life files. And these aren't just, a few notes on a piece of paper. We're talking deeply detailed profiles on every single key person in that leader's inner circle. Think of it this way. It's like building a perfect real-time Google Maps timeline, but for your enemy's entire security apparatus. You know exactly where they live, the route they drive to work, their shift patterns, everything. Now, obviously, a team of humans can't sift through all this information. It's just too much. So who or what was turning all of this data chaos into a crystal clear signal? Well, this project was led by none other than Israel's legendary Unit 8200. This is their elite cyber warfare and signals intelligence division. And signals intelligence is basically a fancy way of saying they are experts at intercepting electronic signals, and this kind of high-tech, data-heavy operation is exactly what they do. And the sheer amount of data they were dealing with it's just mind-boggling. We're talking about billions of data points, not just from cameras, but from phone signals, GPS pings, you name it, all of it fed into their massive systems. What they were doing is something called network analysis. They used AI to map out the entire social and professional web surrounding the target. See, it's not just about tracking one guy. It's about understanding the entire ecosystem he moves in, down to the minute. So after years and years of this invisible prep work, all the data starts pointing to one very specific Saturday morning. The plan is finally set in motion. Right before the strike happens, something really weird starts happening around the target's location. The cell networks just die. If you were a bodyguard trying to call for help or radio a warning, nothing. Your phone would just ring busy. The entire security team was electronically cut off, totally isolated. And what's so fascinating is how this all came together. It was a blend of the old and the new. The final go signal wasn't just based on digital data. They also had a human asset, a spy, on the ground, physically confirming the target's location. You've got high-tech surveillance meeting old-school boots-on-the-ground espionage. And the element of surprise was absolute. I mean, the regime knew they were a target, but they never ever thought an attack would come on a quiet Saturday morning in the middle of the day. All those years of pattern of life analysis let the attackers pick the one moment, the one time that was completely unexpected.
So, what's the big takeaway here? This whole operation, it wasn't just a one-off event. It's basically a blueprint, a playbook for a whole new way of fighting.
And we've actually seen this playbook get used again, right? Just look at the 2024 Hezbollah pager attack. It was a similar idea. Israel spent years infiltrating their systems to hack and weaponize thousands of private pagers, basically disrupting Hezbollah's entire communication network from the inside out. It's a different target, a different weapon, for sure, but it's the exact same underlying strategy. You weaponize the enemy's own stuff against them.
And that really brings us to the core of it. As one analyst perfectly put it, wars today are not fought with just missiles and jets. They're fought with data, with years of invisible surveillance and algorithms. The really decisive battles, they're being fought in the digital world, long before a single shot is fired.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? In this new era of conflict, where our cities and our devices are covered in sensors, maybe the most important question is no longer who has the biggest weapons, but who has the best